Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Elite Outcome Academy. I am Professor Eric Thomas. Today's episode, I wanted to talk about many different things, but I landed on this topic, which was shifting identity through confidence exercises. Identity is really based on how confident we are to behave in certain ways around certain people in certain environments. And that doesn't mean that we are aligned with the greatest version of us. It can absolutely be a self-sabotaging, escapist version of us that we are most strongly identifying with, that we derive our confidence from. But the ability to set rules and boundaries. So I have what's called the PRB program. It's permission, rules, and boundaries and these are self-imposed about when and how and why you operate in certain behaviors in certain environments around certain people. Whatever you need permission, rules, and boundaries around in your life, you can utilize this program. But taking 5 or 10 minutes, either at the beginning or the end of some activity, some behavior, some type of conversation, before, if it's at the beginning, before indulging into said activity or leaving that activity or conversation or behavior 5 or 10 minutes earlier than normal. I'll get to the point with the story here in just a moment. Well, really, doing so with the intention of having the self-imposed ability to do it, having the resistance to be able to do this exercise, okay? Here's a story. I used to walk into the bar. So I already had rules before, which was no alcohol at home, okay? But I used to walk into the bar. And which, by the way, I didn't always follow. I just want to throw that nuance in there, that caveat. I digress. I would walk into the bar. I'd walk straight in, swing the corner, walk right up to the bar, and order a drink. Okay? And when I was really heavily debating my next chapter of life, which I knew did not include alcohol, I wasn't sure how I was going to get there yet, but I knew this was going to be the case. And I had this version of me in my mind, this version of me that was capable of living life without having to escape. I didn't necessarily believe yet that I could become that person, but I was doing little practices leading up to this point. One of them being, before I named it permission, rules, and boundaries, was to take 5 or 10 minutes of observation time before walking up to the bar. I knew full well that I was walking up to the bar. I was going to get a drink. I was going to say hi to this person. I was going to go sign up for a karaoke song. I was going to go play pool. I was going to do my pattern of things. And I gave myself full permission to do so. But what I did, though, was incorporated this 5 or 10 minutes before doing it to observe. So I'd walk in and I'd sit down and I would look and I would think. And I would say, why am I here? Well, because I want a drink. Who am I going to talk to? I'm going to go talk to that person. Am I going to go sing a karaoke song? Yes or no? Am I going to go play pool? Yes or no? Because sometimes, maybe there wasn't enough people there to sing, or maybe there was somebody there that I didn't want to play pool with, and maybe somebody I did or did not want to talk to. So I sat down, and with the intention of having the ability to decide when, how, what, and where I was going to behave, I started to install this little tiny form of confidence and self-belief and self-trust that I was capable of doing more than just escaping. With full permission that I was allowed to do the normal thing. The only thing is I had to earn the permission by taking 5 or 10 minutes. So, create these 5 or 10 minute exercises in your own life. I then transferred this 5 or 10 minute rule to the way that I keep my environment. So, if there's a room like my bedroom, I always try to talk vaguely because I'm still trying to overcome this extreme privacy mechanism that I have. Unnecessary. So say it's my bedroom, okay? And this is a story. There's a bigger story here that I'll tell eventually at another time. But it used to be an absolute mess. And actually, I'm recording in that bedroom right now. It's where I record these podcasts from at the moment. And I can see that the 5 or 10 minute rule is creeping up on me here, okay? So, slowly but surely, after many designs of putting a program together, I got to a point where I did not want the pressure of perfectionism. So we go back. I was allowed to participate in all of the nightly activities, okay? I did not need perfectionism. The pressure of perfectionism is too much in these scenarios. I do have perfectionist tendencies. Again, I digress. Okay, so I got to a point where if I can recognize that it's going to take more than 5 or 10 minutes for me to clean my room, then I have to do it right then. Okay? Because if it gets past a 5 or 10 minute task, then that becomes overwhelming. That starts an old cycle of letting things get out of control. That shows to me that my impulsivities, my lack of care, my depression or whatever it is might be kicking in. So I go, okay, I've done it enough times now that I know, all right, this is a 5-minute cleanup. No big deal. That does not take away from my day. It's not interruptive to the rest of my process. It doesn't put the pressure of perfectionism on, where if I leave something, I've got like this cup right here. If I leave this cup here, I don't have to look at it and have self-disgust or these other negative feelings or mechanisms set in. It's there, it's fine. The rule is, if it's going to take more than 5 or 10 minutes to fix it, then we have to do that right now. We have to do that reset. 5 or 10 minute reset. 5 or 10 minutes of observation. 5 to 10 minutes of installing self-belief, self-confidence, self-trust, capability. It was just so powerful. So let's talk about what this is doing. So our habits and behaviors, they live in our neural pathways, okay? The neural mechanisms in our brain that hold memory, that hold behavior, that keep us in alignment with what we have trained it to think is homeostasis, which is safety overall. So we have psychological and biological homeostasis, okay? When we live in certain habits and behaviors for an extended period of time, that's when our neurology remembers, that's when our neurology believes that this is what we are supposed to be doing. If we know that we are doing self-destructive, escapist behaviors, and we are starting to transform away from them, that homeostasis, that neurological state, will begin to kick in fight or flight responses because it's under threat of what you have trained it to believe is the center of where you were supposed to be. Okay? So we have to, in training our mind, training our neurological system happens over time. So if we know that this to be true, there's a million different ideas on how we formulate habits. The baseline of how we formulate habits is training our neurology to behave and interact with the rest of our biological makeup to encourage us to stay within the boundaries, right? Think about it, biological homeostasis. We can think about this in thirst, right? We get so thirsty that there's nothing else we can do but think about getting something to drink. Right now, I have the small alarm of thirst going off, but it's not enough yet to force me to pause or stop recording to get a drink, okay? Eventually it will. If I talk for another 30 or 40 minutes, I will eventually have to pause and get a drink. Our psychological homeostasis runs on the same framework, okay? When we can perceive, we see, we hear, we touch, we participate in our environment, those neurological mechanisms, they either release dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin saying this is where you belong, this is what you're supposed to be doing, or it fires off norepinephrine, it fires off cortisol, it fires off all these stress hormones saying, whoa, 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 something's out of whack here, get back to safety. And safety doesn't necessarily mean you're safe, okay? It just means you've trained your neurology to think that's where you're supposed to be. So since that happens over time, we have to start training it and priming it to be able to move away from. It's like being sneaky, okay? It's like sneaking out. When you this is a good analogy. When you're gonna sneak out of the house when you were a kid, or even maybe you didn't sneak out, maybe you thought about it. You thought about how you would do it. You would slowly and methodically leave the house, making sure that you didn't make any sound, making sure that you didn't alarm your parents, making sure that you didn't alarm the dog, making sure that there wasn't too many big bumps or whatever, and then trying to make sure that you got back in time before getting caught, right? So it's like being sneaky. We have to sneak our way into training our neurology to understanding that we are going to be moving into a new space, that we're going to be moving into a new version of us, that we're going to be moving into a new center that it needs to pay attention to. And we can do that by training it through these 5 to 10 minute exercises. Okay? My room being a mess used to be totally okay with me. But if I cleaned all of it at one time, soon enough it would be a disaster again, because that's where my psychological homeostasis thought I should be living in. That's what was comfortable. That's what felt safe. That's what felt like I belonged, okay? Now on the opposite end of that, so there I do have a program that trains that all the way down to in the reverse. But now that I've done that and I've trained it down and I've retrained it back in the other direction, where now if I'm getting past a 5 to 10 minute cleanup, then the stress hormones kick in and says, hey, we're getting out of whack here. Something's not right. Let's fix it. And then I get to be in control of that. Okay? Is this making sense? I hope so. Comment down below. Let me know if this is making sense, because it is really a simple technique. It takes no time. This is part of my non-consequential action plan coaching program. I tried to incorporate a lot of these non-consequential things. Like, if it's not going to be a disrupt to the day, if it's not going to bother anybody else, if it's not really going to shake up your world around you, and these techniques are really super useful. So give yourself permission to continue doing whatever it is that you're doing, as long as you take 5 or 10 minutes, not even as long as, just incorporate these 5 or 10 minute thought exercises at the beginning of whatever said activity. Maybe it's going to get food. Maybe it's sending a text. Maybe it's whatever it is that you are using as an escapist mechanism, or using to not be productive, or whatever it is, okay? 5 or 10 minutes before you do that thing. And then the second step is to take 5 or 10 minutes off the end and reflect there as well. This technique, this 5 or 10 minute PRB, permission, rule, and boundary technique, really had a major powerful impact on who I am today. My standards have become so much higher. My ability to have self-trust and self-belief is so much higher. The confidence in myself that I have is unrecognizable to the version of me that created this technique. That is so cool. It's so cool to me. So, hopefully this episode helps. I'm so grateful if you're here. I'm so grateful if you're here watching this. We're going to make a big deal out of this academy. And we're going to really help transform a lot of people's lives. We're going to really put in a lot of effort. We're going to grow this thing so super big. So if you wouldn't mind liking or commenting or subscribing or just one thing. I don't need you to do all of it. You can, you're welcome to, and I would absolutely love it if you did. Tell me part of your story in the comment section. But just by subscribing, you are helping me to achieve my mission and my goal in this world, which is to be as influential as possible for those that are really troubled, that have the greatest ability to be successful, that are the most creative and the most passionate. I think that the greatest leaders in this world are still buried in the ashes of chaos. And I think it is my job to help lift them up like a phoenix rising. Lift you up like a phoenix rising. And I'll end with this, which is my favorite quote. Maybe you've heard it before, but you'll definitely hear it again if you haven't. We shine our armor with the oil of adversity. Become elite and find somebody to be kind to today.